Okay, so we've established how the patch panel works. Now let's look a little bit into the patch panel. Keep in mind that you have the ability to, like for example, you saw in the previous video that I connected envelope 1 to VCO 1, and then I chose the amount, and then that connection was made. But you don't have to stop there. You can also add it to VCO 2's pitch. Let's get VCO 2 going. Let's do it in negative. You can apply envelope 1 to any number of these destinations that we see across the top here, and even more destinations when we get into how this functionality works, which I will talk about in a different video. But you can direct that envelope anywhere and to any amount for that connection, either positive or negative. So you can really get down to some serious modulation if you want to. Okay. For example, I don't know about you, but I often use the mod wheel as a modulation. Like I could grab a knob and change the setting, but then once you've grabbed a knob and changed the setting, you have to get back to 0, probably. So obviously the modulation wheel is a great place to go in order to add amounts of modulation and get back to 0 quickly and easily in the midst of performance. So if we go over to the matrix, you can see H is mod wheel. You can apply mod wheel in any amount you desire, positive or negative, to all of these functions, all of the VCO functions, the filters, various things, and whatever you add over in this section. So it's really quickly, you can even do this in performance if you immediately want the mod wheel to again, control the pitch of oscillator 1, pow, and then the amount. And you can go really far up or negative. And that becomes really helpful if, for example, like you're using sync and you want to modulate the pitch of an oscillator in order to create the sync effect, etc. It's just really immediate, really direct. Press the button, choose the amount, go. So it's really a fantastically functional interface for the immediacy of a synthesizer performer, whether you're like a keyboard player like me, or you've got this connected to a large modular system. You can make immediate decisions, immediate connections, way infinitely faster than plugging something in, and then, setting them, pow, you press the button, the amount, it's there. Really fantastic. There are certain functions that are only available in the matrix. For example, keyboard. Now we know keyboard as being primarily a function for the filter, basically making the filter darker on the low end and brighter on the top, because that's how acoustic instruments often sound. So typically we find a keyboard knob in a filter so that you can create that effect. And to be honest, it's kind of I'm not so into emulating acoustic instruments with synthesizers. So it's kind of like hold back to a time where that function was really beneficial to be able to help you emulate things. It still sounds nice, especially when you've got like a deep, low, funky bass. Here, let's just plug it in here. You can have it, obviously darker on the bottom and brighter on the top, and that's super awesome. But there are two things to keep in mind with this particular application of this functionality. Remember, we can also go to the negative. So if we turn this to the negative, then, we get nothing. We may have to do an adjustment here. We have it bright on the bottom and darker on the top, which is actually kind of cool. So we can apply this in positive or negative, or basically what we're taking with the keyboard function is the voltage that comes from the keys and using it to control the values of different functions. Like, for example, the keys in this case are controlling, the voltage is controlling the frequency of the filter cutoff. So we can apply that then to any number of things. And it can be very useful changing a function to suit the frequency of the note that you're playing. One of the aspects of this that is a lot of fun is, especially with these Arturia oscillators that have these wave shaping functions, you can manipulate them really quickly and easily without like having to turn a knob or make a decision. For example, like right now we have the triangle. If we want to kick in the metalizer, we can, direct envelope 1 to metal, crank that up, and then listen to that. It's like instant DX7. But that's so immediate. It's just as easy as turning the knob yourself, except for, it's really easy to then cancel and have it be gone. So the Matrix is just your best friend when it comes to immediacy and fun. Another thing we need to talk about as far as functions that are not available in any part of the non-Matrix interface. For example, Aftertouch. Aftertouch, the MatrixBrute has Aftertouch, and Aftertouch is a great controller. You can immediately apply it to, for example, the filter. Let's put it on something with a little more. You don't have to root around for it. It's just right there. You make the connection, choose the amount, pow. You're making decisions about the filter cutoff by how hard you press the keys. And it's that easy, and it can be directed to pretty much anything that has a knob, and certainly any number of these destinations that are listed across the front, including things like LFO amount, which is fantastic. Another function that we have access to that we don't see really any access anywhere else is velocity. So again, you don't often see me playing velocity because so many of the vintage synths that I demonstrate don't have velocity. So when I demonstrate a synth that does have velocity, it's a pretty strange thing. I don't use it that much, but you certainly can. You can apply it to anything. So in this case, we can certainly, another thing to remember though, is that you have access to velocity in the VCF and in the VCA through the envelope. So you probably don't need to direct it to the filter, but if you want to direct it someplace else, you have the ability to do so. Like, for example, what happens if we direct velocity to pitch? It goes crazy. That'd be the most frustrating thing. You should actually set somebody's velocity to pitch when they're not looking, so they're like trying to play a single note, and then the faster they play it. Okay, no, don't do that. Don't do that to your friends. Your friendship's more important than having fun. Anyway, but yeah, so you can direct velocity not just to the amplitude and not just to the filter, as is the case in so many synthesizers, but you can direct it to control any number of functions. So how fast you hit the key controls it. That's an amazing ability to control things. Okay, so if we wanted to, for example, apply the velocity, knowing that it's already sort of represented as far as filter and as far as VCA, although you could still do it, it's up to you. But here, I'll just give you a quick example. Like, for example, we could go to VCO1's metal functionality. Okay, so we've got a triangle, right? And if we wanted to add velocity to it, we could do this. Basically, you can change the timbre of VCO1 using the metalizer through velocity. So the quicker you play, quote, the harder you play, the more you'll get that change. And then if you think about it, things like, for example, you could also use aftertouch to control like the filter. That's two different levels of how your finger is making a decision about the timbre. Which is really, I mean, expressivity. We can all enjoy the modular functionality of a synthesizer that allows us to route this, there, and everything. But also this synthesizer, Arturia goes very deeply into making it expressive through physical playing, which is amazing. Having the ability to modularly affect aftertouch and modularly affect velocity simultaneously in an analog synth is really, really cool. We're not going to talk about sequence mod because we'll talk about that when we're talking about sequencing. And we're going to cover these last 4 rows when we talk about macro knobs, which are fantastic. The combination of macro knobs and these functions over here, which we'll talk about in another video, fantastic combination. So that is basically the functionality that you can direct the matrix to that isn't apparent on the front panel.